Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have the latest on the severe storm Eowyn that is arriving over the coming hours. And you can see at the moment we've got to the initial weather front that is slowly edging in, but it's those winds around the centre of that low which are going to be arriving through Friday morning could cause significant disruption for much of the Republic of Ireland, Northern England, and for pretty much all of Scotland. We have got a red warning now issued. I did expect it yesterday. As I said, pretty much 100% sure we'd see a red warning issued, and we do have an official UK Met Office red warning issued for all of Northern Ireland and for parts of southern Scotland edging into Northern England. And of course from Ciaran, which is the Irish Met Office, there is a total red warning across the whole country. I think the most severe impacts will be across the Republic of Ireland, and then those winds could edge higher when they do pick up through the Irish Sea, so perhaps for Northern England, Northern Ireland and southern Scotland once again through the early hours of the afternoon. We are going to see some snow and some heavier rain elsewhere, and we do have widespread amber warnings issued for rain, for wind, and other warnings issued for snow and rain. Pretty much the whole of the British Isles now is covered in weather warnings throughout the next 24 hours. So we'll run through all of those weather warnings, and then we'll have a look at the latest UKV, arpege and icon runs, just to see if we continue to see that cross-model consensus as we do head into the peak hours of this storm. Of course, we've not touched on the longer range. I know a lot of people do watch for the longer range. That will be back in tomorrow's video as we do, again, look further into the end of January and start of February, where we could see further named storm potentially later on in the weekend or start of next week. But of course, we want to concentrate on the immediate impacts from this system at the moment. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, which do like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. As I said, if we start on the live radar, you can see the initial weather front associated with Storm Eowyn is moving in at the moment. And although we are going to see lots of heavy rain around, and have got yellow warnings issued, it's by no means the major impact from this storm. It is going to be those winds, and I said some of the strongest winds that I've ever seen from some of these models. Yes, I've only been looking at the models for 5 or 6 years, but nonetheless still the strongest I've ever seen from the UKV, arpege, icon. Thankfully, the strongest winds associated with this storm are going to be out in the Atlantic. They're actually taking place at the moment, probably about 500 miles west of the Republic of Ireland, out to sea, where wind gusts from some runs are up to 140 or 150 miles per hour. Not expecting that once those winds make landfall, they will drop down to 110 or 120 at max. But of course, that is still severe, dangerous winds that you'd expect to see in a hurricane. Again, not a hurricane, but that's kind of a good comparison in terms of potential disruption in these prone areas. Now, we have got cold air in place. There is actually going to be a risk of some snow as well. We're already seeing a bit of snow across the higher ground of the Republic of Ireland and maybe more across Northern Ireland, but it's across Northern England and parts of Scotland where we could actually see blizzard conditions, especially through the morning. Once the weather front does sweep through, there is milder air trapped within the system, so it will turn back to rain. But for a time, we could actually see some heavy snow. As I said, though, we are in the calm before the storm for most, and you can see it's quite a cold night, but you can see the milder wedge is starting to move in, which is associated with Storm Eowyn. But yeah, pretty chilly, frost in a few spots, but those temperatures will rise into the morning. If we do just put on those wind speeds at the moment, these are the sustained wind speeds, so not wind gusts. Again, when we're talking about our top winds, we are looking at wind gusts, so not sustained wind speeds. Wind speeds can normally be about half of what wind gusts are in the UK. So we're looking at sustained winds of perhaps 50 to 60 miles per hour, maybe 70 in a few spots. And gusts, as I said, up to 110, 120 in a few spots once again. Because already sustained winds are starting to really pick up across the southern part of the Republic of Ireland. Again, they're not particularly strong, we're not record breaking at all. They're kind of purple. So we're getting up towards kind of 50, 60 mile per hour winds now. But they will be picking up massively over the coming hours, and these sort of darker blues and purples will be widespread, and the wind gusts will be, as I said, quite a few tens of miles per hour faster. Could get up to, I said, 110, 120 miles per hour. Now, if you look at the latest weather warnings, we have got numerous warnings now issued. Now, we won't cover the warnings that we saw yesterday. So we've already looked at the widespread amber warnings and yellow warnings. We will still touch on the amber warnings just because they have been updated today. Got one issued further northwards, and then of course we'll look at the red warnings. So you've got this southern amber warning that does cover, if we go to the bottom, much of Scotland, drifting into the East Midlands and northwest England, and covering Northern Ireland as well. Comes into force at 6 a.m, so in only about 9 hours as I'm recording this, and goes all the way to 9 p.m. in the evening. It's the standard, very big amber warning that we've got with this system. And again, we're looking at 70 miles per hour quite widely inland, up to 70 to 80 in a few spots, 80 to 90 above exposed coast. Those 80 to 90 to 100 miles per hour, those are highly likely in that red warning zone. With a secondary amber warning that's issued from 1 p.m. tomorrow until 6 a.m, so covering a lot of the same areas, but it is extending further northwards, for more of the Northern Isles, as again, the system, as it clears away, those impacts will drift northwards as well. So for much of Friday afternoon into Saturday morning, again, we're looking at similar winds, 60 to 70, maybe 70 to 80, and a few 80 to 90. But I do think come Saturday morning especially, those winds will slowly start to die down. Doubt we'll see the intensity that we're going to look at in Friday morning or early hours of Friday afternoon. It will die off, and you can see that the impact is slightly lower. So still expecting, major winds, named storm level winds, 70, 80 miles per hour, but not the 90, 100 or 110 that looks possible in a few other spots earlier on Friday. And then, of course, we've got the red warning issued. Now, this red warning issued is for Northern Ireland. So they're two separate warnings. Again, highest impact, highest likelihood, issued earlier today. Very strong winds associated with Storm Eowyn, causing very dangerous conditions with widespread disruption and significant impacts. It's a danger to life warning. That is what red warnings are. And you can see it's 7 a.m. until 2 p.m. So only lasting 7 hours. So it's not, a massive length of time, but still, middle of the day, 80 to 90 widely, 100 miles per hour across exposed coast, and could potentially be even higher than that. So I'd recommend not travelling during this red warning zone, not being outside during this red warning zone, potentially not even travelling the hours either side of the red warning, simply because the weather doesn't listen to the red warnings. The red warnings is trying to accommodate the weather. The red warning doesn't mean at 2 p.m. or 2:01 suddenly we're not going to see the 100 mile per hour winds anymore. Yes, the likelihood will most likely drop, but those impacts will still be there during the afternoon and will still be there before 7 a.m. So if you are in these red warning zones, I do recommend not travelling, or only do it in extenuating circumstances. But yeah, it looks a severe danger to life, and again, I don't know what the disruption will be tomorrow, but yeah, we could expect pretty much anything. We are in pretty unknown territory right now. Again, we have seen winds of above 100 miles per hour before, but one thing I'm noting for this storm is the widespread nature of those winds and those intensities. We have seen locally sort of sting jets develop that produce 100 plus, 120 mile per hour winds, red warning level. We've seen red warnings issued in the past few years, but again, they've been more isolated. They've been not for quite as strong as this, and not as widespread. And that is the real issue. Again, I'll go back to, I think it was Storm Ciaran, which we saw a few years ago, where we saw a red warning issued across parts of England and Wales. Now, that was more due to the fact that we were seeing lesser winds, 70 or 80 miles per hour, but in more populated areas where those winds could cause more disruption. So not all red warnings are equal. They're all equal in terms of the significance, but in terms of the actual numbers, they aren't always the same. But by my gosh, this red warning though is by far one of the most significant for those raw model numbers. So yeah, we'll be very interested to see what happens tomorrow. And then, of course, that secondary red warning comes into force a couple of hours later and lasts a few hours later into the afternoon until 5 p.m. Again, we're looking at 80, 90 miles per hour, perhaps up to 100. But again, I know the Met Office say up to 100 here. From the looks of the latest runs, I suspect it could be maybe even 110. Severe winds, and you can see it does cover major cities like Glasgow and Edinburgh. I will say the strongest winds will most likely be towards the western coastal areas, towards the Irish Sea. But as we'll look at the models in a minute, could drift very far inland. So yeah, could be very severe. And of course, you see rain warning issued in the west, as with that heavy rain moving through tonight. Widespread yellow wind warnings elsewhere, stronger winds and a bit of snow up towards northern Scotland as well. And then as we head into Saturday, we can see we've got that amber warning for wind and yellow warning for wind, again as the storm slowly clears. And then to Sunday, look at this. We're not going to focus on these warnings today, but I will just highlight them to you because there could be a risk of another named system here as we do head into Sunday and Monday. Strong winds and some heavy rain. And again, could be a more severe system focused further southwards. This is one to keep a close eye on, and we'll look at this in a bit more detail tomorrow. But I do just want to focus really solely on Eowyn this evening. So if you do look at the latest UKV now, you can see Storm Eowyn arriving from the west at the moment. Very heavy rain through the early hours of the morning, but for most, the actual heavy rain will have cleared by sort of late morning. So not too much rain, but it's this centre of the low. On the southern flank, we're seeing exceptionally strong squally showers, snow over the higher ground as cold air wraps back in. Just severe winds as this does slowly clear. Further southwards, once you clear the stronger winds and the rain during the morning, it won't actually be too bad. It'll be a bit blustery, but nothing too major. And then eventually through Friday into Saturday, again, bits and bobs of rain, a bit of snow in the north as the system slowly clears. But yeah, it does look like it slowly dies away. A little bit more rain there into Sunday, and then all eyes further southwards as we start seeing more heavy rain and potential for another big storm system again. You can see the hook around the centre of this low. Not quite as big of a storm, but could still pack a punch more locally as this clears through. If you watched yesterday's video, you saw this system was further eastwards and southwards, more towards the channel. Here, it's slightly further westwards, so it is moving around between runs, but it is packing a punch and could be another really severe system. If you look at the mean sea level pressure, we're expecting Storm Eowyn to get down to around 900 and probably 36 millibars. That's what the latest UKV is showing. And the system into Sunday and Monday potentially down towards 962 millibars, maybe 64. So nowhere near as strong, but as I said, because of how intense and small it is, it could still pack a significant punch. So if you look at Storm Eowyn moving in, you can see that winds coming in off the Atlantic in excess of 120, 130 miles per hour, slightly further out to sea, as I said, up to 150 is a possibility. Inland, we're looking at widely 80 to 90, and many areas in the far west of the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, 110, maybe 120. And then the peak winds widely will be around the lunchtime period, where you can see again widely inland we're looking at 70 to 80, up towards 90 in some exposed areas, and towards the coasts 100 to 110 look like a real possibility. Winds will remain very strong through the evening, could see an extension to that red warning. I'm not going to lie, do suspect we could see an extension of that red warning to cover more of northern Scotland from the look of this latest run. 90 miles per hour, yes, not 110 anymore, but still 90, maybe an isolated 100 there through Friday evening as it slowly drifts away and those winds slowly die off into Saturday morning and fully subside there during Saturday, and it's actually a much calmer day. However, into Sunday, more stronger winds push in, and then we see that another very lively system. Not as severe winds as last night, but still 60, 70 or even 80 around the centre of that system with some more heavy rain and just generally more blustery winds. So it could be another named system there, but it won't be anywhere near as severe. Just one to keep a very close eye on. If you just drop on the temperatures quickly, you can see as we head into Friday, it's going to be a pretty cold day, 5 to 9 degrees. And of course, we've got those very strong winds in the north. The wind chill's going to be exceptionally cold. And there's going to be a bit of snow around as cold air does wrap in if we put on those upper air temperatures. Behind the weather front, some cold air is actually going to get drawn in from the west, all the way from North America. Big polar maritime air mass. Of course, the air mass has contributed to the intensity of this system. And it's going to bring a bit of colder conditions through the weekend. And then Saturday, chilly as we do head into Saturday morning. A frost and only mid-single digits during the day. And then we see that rinse and repeat through the weekend and start of next week. And then slowly turning a little bit milder, but still remaining very chilly here. It's the final days of the month. Now, just to finish, I want to do a bit of cross-model consensus by having a look at the latest icon and arpege. Of course, with WX charts, you can see we've got the max winds in the bottom right corner. That is highlighting what we're seeing as our max winds on this chart. So you can see already 176 kilometers per hour, that's over 100 miles per hour. And you see the winds really picking up, peaking around the early hours of Friday, just to the west of the Republic of Ireland, almost off the charts with some of these wind speeds. 220 kilometers per hour, so we're looking at 130, 140, 150 miles per hour. and then slowly it starts to clear eastwards. And yeah, it does start to really ramping up across much of Northern Ireland and Scotland. And then look at that, those dark greys and yellows indicating winds in excess of 160 kilometres per hour. So that is 100 miles per hour, quite widely, for slowly clearing to the east and dying out. And then that next system potentially arriving there into Sunday and Monday. A bit more widespread system there. And still very strong, just nowhere near as strong as Eowyn. And then finally, if we compare it to the latest arpege, Eowyn arrives once again. Look at that, 246 kilometres per hour. That is ridiculous. That is 150 miles per hour, maybe even slightly higher. Ridiculous winds there. Look at that orange. Luckily, majority of that is out to sea, but we could see a bit of stretch of those 200 kilometres per hour drifting inland there in around Galway area. It could be really severe there. So I know we're talking about the UK predominantly here, but yeah, the Republic of Ireland could be hit even harder. I know these west-facing coasts are a little bit more prepared, don't have as large trees and things to fall down, and just generally are a bit more prepared for these stronger winds, as they are slightly more usual to be getting sort of storm force winds. But my gosh, these are extreme. These will not have been seen in these regions for many, many years. So my gosh, yeah, it's going to be ridiculous there. Winds slowly die down as the system moves over more land, but still, as I said, in excess of 100 miles per hour as it rattles through. And then we could see another pretty severe system there Sunday into Monday. So as I said, we'll have to really keep a close eye on this tomorrow. It's a very much an outcast event now. Not too much changes from yesterday, other than the fact that we've got increased confidence, increasing those red warnings. I could even see that red warning extended further north, as that could be something put into force tomorrow morning, as it will apply to the afternoon. But yeah, this is one of those where everyone's just got to keep safe. Not seen too much in the news, if I'm being completely honest, on this system. Seen a lot more hype in the past few years for lesser systems. At the time, of course, we can't say that a system is going to be the least impactful storm in the next year or two. We can't look into the future like that. But my gosh, I've not seen the potential impacts from wind like this in many, many years, potentially even decades. Again, I don't always like saying once in a lifetime storm or once in a century, because they're pointless statistics, impossible to say, as every single event is different. But from a purely statistical point of view, purely wind gusts we're seeing from the models here, this is once in a few decades event, if we're just looking at purely statistics. We'll have to wait and see what happens tomorrow. But yeah, not seeing too much hype in the media. And this is one of these events where, to be honest, it wouldn't be bad if a lot of people got on the bandwagon and did hype this up quite a lot, because there are going to be some severe impacts. And I just hope people in the firing line for this are ready. As I said, this is a proper danger to life event. Wind gusts are going to bring down trees, power lines, and there is the risk, of course, to a whole magnitude of sort of subsequent impacts. So yeah, please do stay safe out there. If you are in those red warning zones, please try not to travel, especially during the red warning hours, but even a good few hours either side of that, as these winds are not to be messed with. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and do stay safe, and I'll see you again for another video soon.